wanted to know which planet was causing your suffering? How about Earth?
Hey everyone, Brandflex here, back with a new Chaos Nightmare video. For today's video, I want to go over my reaction to the teaser for the next patch, where they released details on the next Great Rift boss, as well as Tiphera. I was going to make this one large video, but I decided that's probably easier to just split it apart into two digestible parts. I'll briefly mention what I'm going to be doing for Great Rift prep after I'm done talking about the teaser, just so that people that are curious can see it. But I won't go into great detail. That'll probably be tomorrow's video, just so we can extend the content a little bit more. But yeah, the new teaser is really nice. I am very surprised that the developers were, I guess, allowed. I don't really know why they did this before, but it's very nice seeing information ahead of time, because this allows me to stop chasing these funny OTK and highlight decks, and instead focus on maybe trying to do a little funny on patch release and try and snipe rank 1 with a cheese build, like ignoring Tiphera pulls, skipping story and going straight to the Great Rift as soon as possible, and trying to farm, rank 1, just to take a screenshot and like clickbait that in the future, which obviously I'm not going to take like full ownership of that rank 1. I'm going to lose it long before the season ends, but it'd just be funny to have that. Be like, hey guys, I'm rank 1, haha. But jokes aside, talking about the actual Great Rift boss, he's going to be this guy named Colossus. Nice and huge and a lot of fingers. He is going to be a new type of monster. He's going to be a part break monster. You're going to be required to kill his hands before hitting his head really hard. And they have a lot of demerits a lot of different things noted in the teaser. So his two arms will give each other beneficial hits when they're hit. And then if they're hit too many times, then the head will debuff you or hit you. And then if you kill one arm, the other arm will do something. So this naturally implies a benefit towards AoE, which I will talk about very briefly when the video is about to end. But yeah, very interesting type of boss. This very different from what they've done before. And my main question is whether or not we will still be obligated to bring 2 teams to this content. Will we have to kill the Colossus guy once and then again in the second team, just like in Great Rifts 1 or 2? Or are they just going to make this like a boss rush, or not a boss rush, but just like a straight up boss fight where you spawn in and you no longer have to deal with the RNG of like first turning them or whatever? Because I didn't really play Great Rift 2, to be honest. I was out on holiday. But in Great Rift 1, I didn't have a choose your quest Cassius. And so it was a lot of pain going through the first half and then having to reset the second half when I missed 000 on Cassius. So obviously, I'm very curious to know how they're setting up Great Rift now, because it sounds like they might have changed a little bit. And if you do need 2 teams, who is the first team going to be to get the 5 turn? Which won't be too hard to do, but if you're trying to rush and cheese rank 1 like I am, it is something that's on your mind a little bit. And again, I'll talk about my teams and a small amount of prep before I end the video later on. But that being said, oh yeah, also this is where it mentions that you can only hit the head after you kill both arms, and then when you hit the head once, it'll respawn the arms, and then the more you hit it, the more powerful the boss gets. So we'll have to see how we handle that, or how people handle this. Going into Tiphera, Tiphera is going to be our new character. She is a controller order. I always mix up order and justice, but yeah, she is the green attribute. And she's going to be controller, and they say that she's a support-oriented combatant. Wow, I can't really pronounce words today. But that kind of makes me pause and a bit wary, because the last 2 Great Rifts, you didn't really need to pull the previous characters in order to succeed. Obviously, I'm pulling characters because I'm trying to make content for them, but for the most part, like, if you're a new player, and let's say you start the game on Tiphera's release, how are you going to compete in Great Rift properly if you don't have 9? If 9 is truly a needed DPS for Great Rift, and they continue this trend in the future where the very first character before Great Rift is necessary to compete in the first Great Rift, I honestly don't mind it that much, but I feel like it does introduce a lot of FOMO for people who start a little bit too late. Like, if someone starts today, they have to pull 9 immediately, and then only then can they actually utilize Tiphera. So part of me thinks that Tiphera will have a very powerful combat-oriented build, like an alternative build, so that newer players and newer whales are allowed to compete for like rank, like top 100 on Great Rift. But we'll have to see. We have no epiphany data. We only have base epiphanies, so this is all just conjecture and me theorizing. So what is Tiphera doing? Tiphera, much like Aurelia, has 3 unique cards that she can create. And these cards are called archetypes. You have archetype circle, triangle, and square, and they all do notably different things. And they all have the exhaust keyword, which means that they kaboom afterwards. And so the other thing that they're going to talk about on the post is going to be her mythic card. And I'm also kind of excited for this mythic card because I think the developers have not really designed very good mythic cards. I think Saniel had a really good one, and obviously Nine has an okay one. But for the most part, like Nine's mythic card isn't really a true mythic card. You're just playing her hue for free or for much cheaper, which just seems like they intentionally made it like a not good card. Like for me personally, I would love if Nine's Fighting Instinct could just be like Epiphany to draw one. Like that's what I want, but you can't because it's a mythic card. And then Serenil's mythic card, which is also pretty good, is also fake out because it's not really its own unique thing. You're just playing homing lasers, which you've already played. So these really good mythic cards, quote unquote, aren't really true cards in their own individual sense. They're these cards that just kind of steal off of the character's kit. And right now, Tiphera's Event Horizon, her mythic card, does seem genuinely interesting, like its own card that you want to play around and you don't want to delete immediately for card space or for deck space. So very interested to see what this form upgrade means. And if you don't know what Event Horizon is, it's going to be a 2-cost card that gives you 1 AP, 1 draw, and increases the damage amount of the first hit of your next card used by 40%. And then it has a keyword called Form Upgrade, which strengthens a random effect of Event Horizon every time you use an archetype card. And again, I wonder if this is like a random +1, or if you can control it, or how Event Form Upgrade works, because this essentially becomes, like, at its base form, without any of these form upgrade things, it is a 1 mana, 1 draw buff, which is already quite okay. And then depending on how form upgrade works, is it like adding 1 flat value or 1 flat stack to each identity? So like if I get 3 upgrades into action points, am I getting a positive 2 AP, 1 draw, and buff? If I get 3 draw, am I spending 1 mana on 4 draw and buffing? If I get all buffs, then is it kind of just bad in that scenario? A lot of questions that we will only know once she is properly released or properly revealed in the showcase stream later on in the week. And then, yeah, here's her card art. I'll try to remember to link this in the description down or down below, up above, wherever it is. And if you want to admire it, then go ahead. It's pretty cool art. I really like the way that the basics are designed. I've never really cared too much about the characters in the thing, but she is pretty cute holding the Rubik's Cube in her hand, so not too bad of a mythic card. But anyways, for her actual kit itself, she is going to be a defense-based damage dealer. So she's going to have 1 strike with 100% defense, 2 heal cards, and her kind of real starting card is going to be called Quantum Seed, which is a 100% heal, create 2 archetype cards in the draw pile, and then draw 1 of those cards. Now, from the wording of the other cards, it seems like you can choose which 2 archetype cards you want to pull or want to create. And I think that you probably just click 1 and then it creates both. So again, need to see how this is played. There might be some gameplay leaks I haven't seen somewhere, so if I missed that, let me know in the comments. If it's random, it'll be a bit worse, but if you actively choose which archetype cards there are, even based off of the base Epiphany, Tiphera automatically strikes me as like a very skill-based and a much more complex character than a lot of other characters in the game. Because you actually, again, assuming you choose the archetypes, you're actively introducing a minigame where the player decision and input actually might be really skillful. Now, obviously, you can see the archetypes down here, circle, triangle, square. There might be an argument about how if there's like actually going to be much skill in it if one archetype just blows the others out of the water. But I think it's a genuinely interesting conversation because, again, if you can choose, Tiphera becomes a super flexible support, and she's flexible in a way that actually encourages player decision and versatility and diversity instead of just being like this massive Swiss Army knife that does everything for you. So I'm really interested in seeing how she works. And more importantly, with Quantum Seed, we see that it's a 0-cost base card, which means that its Epiphanies will probably have a 0-cost card, which then further means that you can have a 0-cost Divine Epiphany draw 1. So just based on this assumption I'm having of what her epiphanies can be, because I don't think they're going to make a 0-cost epiphany into a 1-cost on all 5 upgrades. This means that just off this alone, Tiphera can be a pseudo 0-card, like card neutral character, because you can play or divine, or well, I can't talk properly. It's gonna be 4 divine copies of Quantum Seed with a divine draw 1, and they all cost 0. And then just from a glance, I guess I'm jumping ahead of myself, you can see that you can delete 2 of these cards or 3 of these cards. Event Horizon is probably fine to keep, but you can delete Event Horizon, you can delete Farm Convergence, delete Destruction and Creation. Oh, actually, you can only delete 1 of those, right? Yeah, you can keep Dual Creation, keep Event Horizon, then just delete Form Convergence, Creation, Destruction, and the basics. And you can have a pretty easy, like, fairly cheap card neutral deck, because obviously Dual Creation is a unique card that seems like it's an upgrade, and then Event Horizon should cycle itself. So before I get too far ahead of myself, going over the first Epiphany card is going to be Form Convergence. Retain, draw 2 archetype cards, and then double a random effect of those cards for 1 turn. Unfortunately, costs 1, so this card, in my opinion, will be very dependent on what the Epiphanies are in order to be kept or even good in her kit. Creation Destruction is going to be her damage card, and it's going to be 120% defense-based damage, 80% shield, 80% heal, and then Harmonization, double all effects. And Harmonization, as far as I'm aware, is when you play the card when your mana matches the cost. And once again, really depends on the epiphanies, but I would not be surprised if Tiphera had an epiphany that just made her a really decent DPS, so that, again, new players or new whales can just use her and rely on her to perform in Great Rift, because I do think it's a bit crappy to force people to pull 9 in order to compete in top 100, but we'll see. The third epiphany card, Dual Creation, is probably an upgrade card. It's going to be a unique card, so you can't dupe it. When 2 archetype cards are created, create 1 identical card in the discard pile. And this wording is the reason why I think Tiphera is going to be a choose create, because if you could create 2 random, or rather if you're forced to create 2 random archetype cards, then what would Dual Creation choose? Like, that seems very random and not very fun, and that's why I'm very much hoping that it's a choose archetype, because I don't think I saw them mention how these archetypes are decided. I'm going to scroll really quickly just to see, but I'm pretty sure it doesn't say, right? Because it just says she generates these archetype cards. It doesn't say that you choose and get the, like, it doesn't say that you randomly have to deal with them like you would have to with Aurelia. Further down, again, the Mythic card, Event Horizon. We talked about that already. 2-cost card, does a lot, can become very powerful, assuming that it's like a stack-based system where you upgrade one of these options over and over again, depending on the archetype you play. And then the archetypes themselves, we have Archetype Circle, which is going to be a heal 50% and 1 AP. Archetype Triangle, which is a 50% shield and also buffs the next hit of your next attack card by 30%, capping up to 300%, which is quite healthy. And then we have Archetype Square, which is another heal 50%, and then you draw 1 archetype card. And once again, the potential of Tiphera being able to choose is really important, because Archetype Square is honestly kind of bad without the ability to choose what archetypes you're creating, because you should be able to create like let's say like 3 rounds of circles and then create a 1 round of squares to draw the extra archetype circles that you've created somewhere else. And obviously there's a lot of, again, decision making, because you can take the risk of just creating more circles to get that circle immediately, and then you deal with the potential brick you have later, because you might draw that square, which cannot draw a card to replace itself truly, because it is it's a tutor card, right? You can only draw other archetypes, which cannot draw other cards. So really interesting kit. I do think, unfortunately, she does like directly power creep characters like Aurelia, Narja, Mika, and the like, because these are all characters that have very non-existent draw to begin with, and everything they want to do, healing, AP increase, buffing, Tiphera kind of does by herself, but she does it slightly worse technically overall. Again, it really depends on how Quantum Seed's epiphanies look, but Mika is low-key power crept, because if you can reliably generate these 1 AP heals, then Mika is out of a job. If you're able to consistently buff up your cards in much more reliable fashion without having to rely on cards like Growth Acceleration on Aurelia, then she puts Aurelia out of a job for certain characters, aka just 9. And then Square is just kind of the glue that holds it together, that makes it much more reliable. And unlike Narja, Narja can only buff defense-based damage characters, whereas Tiphera can possibly buff every future decent, strong hitting character as is. And again, there's always a chance that you can go like just worst comes to worst, you can get Quantum Seed as a base Epiphany Morale 1, and then Divine Epiphany Draw 1, and then she can even somewhat buff multi-hitters to a very small margin, although not that greatly. So Tiphera is really interesting. I'm really excited to see her full kit and, mess around with her through deck building, because she has the potential to be one of the most interesting gacha characters that I've ever seen or played in a card game or a card style thing. So very, very excited. And then very, very briefly, I want to go over my plans for cheesing the Great Rift, as I mentioned earlier on in the video. Just talking about like what I'm going to do to try and sneak that rank 1 on spawn. And I'm not someone who likes holding secrets, so that's why I'm going to tell everyone who's dropping in here. Just really quickly, my personal plan is going to be this main carry 9 team. I'm going to use Massacre to maximize my AoE damage and cleave. I'm going to use Aurelia to buff one of the Massacres to see like if maybe I can hit the head really hard or if they kill the arms a bit faster. And then also be running Barrel, which is someone I did talk about on stream when I was going through this earlier. And the reason why I want to go Barrel is because of the charge shot and the fact that she can produce spores. Because obviously, you want a lot of value on hitting the head really hard. And so Barrel can produce spores. Again, this is all very assuming that you draw well. You can see that my deck is a 4-card deck. So I will have an open slot to cycle through everything, but the timing might be off in some regards, which is why it's important, or why I really need to know how the boss mechanics work. But besides that, like Barrel, while she is generating spores and giving me more buffs, she will also be charging up Charge Shot, which will hopefully hit really, really hard at the final hit of the boss, because you should have like a really fat Charge Shot at the very end, and that hopefully like gives you the extra edge you need for like getting a high score, again, for me to cheese rank 1. And obviously, it's a pretty, like, I think Barrel will be immediately replaced by Tiphera, but it's an interesting tech in case anyone wants to fight me on cheesing rank 1 in the first 30 minutes of, you know, the patch hitting. So, yeah. That'll be the video, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed. I'll talk about this team and my theory crafting in more detail tomorrow. And I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.